Right, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm here to basically talk about this, as we know, is on the newsstands as we speak. So I'd like to just touch base on a couple topics on the girls next door. I do believe they are heavily talking about Crystal in this. I have quite a few opinions on this, and I don't know how to really generate my thoughts here, but it seems like Crystal's wanting this big pity party here, and I'm not buying it. Some of the things it sounds like she's done, it's pretty horrendous to have his family and his son. I mean, people were publicly recording him at his dad's funeral. I think that's pushing the limit, to say the least. That's the time where you want to grieve and give your condolences and just go through your own private emotions, I guess, to put it nicely, without having somebody record it on their phone. I'm not too sure how true this is, but that was mentioned on one of the podcasts, I do believe. And it just sounds like this whole article sounds like they're pitting each other against one another for, I would suppose, to sell their magazine here. I have quite a few issues with this whole Crystal situation, because I do believe one of the Playboy Playmates, and she will remain anonymous, she did mention something, in my opinion, I would like to say a little bit more sinister about Crystal, and just a personal perspective on that. If what she did say is true, it's even more horrendous, so I would not put it past her for saying no to people like Hef and everybody at his funeral making those kind of decisions. And I do believe she was saying in this that she was the wife, and that's what wives do, is make decisions, all that. She was married to him, basically saying, I'm his wife, what did they expect? So yes, we get that, we also get that. But Crystal, you've also mentioned very avidly in your book, multiple interviews, insinuating, like, why did I marry somebody so much older? And, you know, a lot of other women kind of say it was for financial benefits, to, you know, get their name out there, all sorts of stuff. And anybody really associated with Playboy is successful or semi-successful to some degree now. So I'm not buying this whole pity party, and I'm trying to find the article as I'm talking to you guys. So I suppose on page 37 they talk about Howie Mandel's mental health. He has OCD as well, so if you got the magazine, please check that out. It's right before the Girls Next Door article here. So the whole article is basically using an older picture of Bridget and Holly, which I don't think is fair, because I think they look quite fine just now. So why don't they use a newer picture? I think this is from one of the shows, I do believe. And of course, they're trying to show Crystal in the best light. They picked the nicest picture for her, so they can basically sell her narrative of bullshit, if you ask me, in my opinion. You know, it seems kind of interesting. She's making all these claims and saying that Bridget is a mean girl and all this other stuff. And basically saying that Bridget and Holly are trying to reignite a feud of sorts, and I don't believe that is the case, because they do have a podcast where I do believe that they just talk about whatever, and it doesn't matter if they are giving their opinion. They're entitled to that. I mean, I might not be the biggest fan of Holly, but however, she is entitled to her own opinion and her freedom of speech. So they had Marston on the show, I do believe, and that's why the conversation of topic became more of a discussion on her show. So if they're going to have him on, he's going to give his personal perspective on how he feels and how things went down. And he pretty much said, when it came to Crystal, not to get on her bad side. And I'm very confused about Marston. I do apologize if I'm saying his name wrong. There's so much out there in the media, it's kind of hard to follow, but he's giving quite a horrible take on his dad's funeral, on how his dad basically could not play his simple games that he played every day, and how is he making big decisions about his will. You know, I can understand his concern there, and I think if anybody is giving him a hard time, I think you shouldn't, because it is his father, and he has known Hef quite longer than Crystal, so he does have a lot of concern at his hands, I do believe. Yes, I will give him the most benefit of the doubt here, but it's also hard to read in between the lines, because Crystal's avidly saying lately that she is on good terms with him, and I don't know how they would be on good terms, in my opinion, if he feels all this wrongdoing, and maybe he's just giving his personal take, like he said, and that's totally fine by me, because I think he's been quiet long enough on the subject, and I don't believe he's trying to stir any drama. I just think he's telling the truth and giving his personal views on how things went down. And I do think it is a bit odd that Bridget said in her podcast that no one was allowed to go to his funeral or see him on his deathbed. In the article it said he died of E. coli. Now, do not quote me on this, but didn't when he first died, they said it was something else? Now they're saying it's E. coli. Does anyone know what the deal about that is? So this current issue is all about Crystal, unfortunately, and just giving basically Holly's take on some of the things that she said on her podcast, mentioning his will. And just a personal opinion, I do believe if Crystal is in his life, that late in his life, I do believe, I should say, maybe she's thinking about, I don't know, just hanging on a couple more years and seeing how things go. And unfortunately with her, it seems like she was just waiting for him to die, which is kind of sad. I do believe we all would agree that if Holly was married to him and they had kids like she wanted, I do believe the Playboy brand would still be around, physical magazine, it would still be a hot discussion. I do believe Holly probably would have made it more modern and with the times. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Holly, I think we can all agree that she would probably have done something to that aspect. So the article says more digs. Marston said Crystal was obsessed with power and claimed she controlled the guest list of who could come and go from the mansion. He said she exiled longtime friends of his dad's, to be a little scared sometimes, blah, 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 blah. Crystal was a true wife of the house. So, I guess, I get that she's claiming that she's a wife, but she's also insinuating that it wasn't real, the relationship, that it was more so for TV. So what is it, Crystal? Like, you're kind of giving in the context, I'm his wife, like, but then you're also playing it off at the same time, too, that it was for the cameras. So when you're doing actions like that, because actions speak louder than words, and both of yours are pretty loud and clear by now, I think everyone's confused here. Why I'm confused about this whole situation is because it looks like Hef's son is still friends with her, and I don't know if anyone can really confirm that, but my whole take on this is that I do believe Crystal's asking for a pity party and trying to sell this narrative of a sympathetic note, because I do believe maybe they're setting her up for something a little bit more. I don't know, it's just a personal opinion, and maybe getting the public familiar with who she is again by putting her on the front cover. Because some of the things that Bridget is mentioning is pretty horrible, and if she's not the first one to mention this, I do believe about not going to have funeral or seeing him as basically dying. So I don't know a whole lot about that situation, because it's hard to talk about it in a truthful way, because we don't know if it's the truth. Like, we do know maybe some other people that he was close with maybe were there, and maybe someone like Bridget and a couple others just maybe were not invited. I mean, it seems like if Crystal had decisions towards the end in Hef's life, it would not surprise me that Bridget and all of them were not allowed around. And I don't get what Crystal said before, that she thought Bridget was a mean girl. I don't think I could really see that. I could see Bridget maybe just wanting to be quiet in a neutral party, and I think maybe Crystal is misunderstanding that. And possibly be taking it differently and a little more personal, because I could not see Bridget giving her really a hard time about anything. I think she probably would be neutral and at least say hi if she did not get along with you. But if this is true of Bridget not being able to see Hef, I do believe Bridget has every right to act the way she is, because maybe she felt there was something a little more sinister with Crystal. So I hope that Hef's son at least got some good money out of the will, because it seems like Crystal was very focused and concerned about the will, because Holly did mention because she was unhappy with the prenup. So I don't think we all are surprised about her being obsessed with being in the will. And I think a lot of that is exaggerated, because she sold out and did a book. You know, if things were going that great, I mean, why would you bother with a book? You know, it seems like when they all get down on their luck, everybody likes to tell a story and do a book. There seems to be a pattern here. Do you not notice that? Holly has a book, Crystal has a book, and they're all, you know, having this little pity party when, you know, I do believe Audra said to a news article that Holly could have sat down with Audra or Bridget and discussed any of these things that Holly was feeling in the book. And basically Audra said she would help her pack if you feel that horrible about it. So that's kind of how I feel about Crystal. If you feel that horrible about it, and you were having anxiety of sorts, and I do get the whole anxiety part, but I'm not buying this whole pity party, this whole magazine. None of it. It seems like she just wants sympathy and trying to get as many sympathetic notes to her that she can. I do believe she's just trying to get the public on her side to feel sorry for her to some degree. I really don't buy a lot of what she's saying because of what Hef's son has said. And don't you notice that as soon as Hef's son went on Holly and Bridget's podcast, then she decides to defend herself because maybe she's going to these conversations and topics at hand are making me look really bad. So it looks like there's some connections. I don't know this for sure, but it looks like maybe Crystal has some connections with Us Weekly, and it sounds like she gave a little bit of an exclusive interview with them, and I assume that's just to sell her narrative of a pity party and wanting sympathy from the public because of all the horrible things Hef's son is saying about her. And I mean, that's a pretty low move on somebody's end. I don't know how to word it. How could you have somebody film somebody like Hef's son and his family members, the few people that were probably there? How could you film them when they're at a funeral and trying to just grieve? And I do believe a couple of other Hef's friends and family were stating that they weren't allowed to the funeral, and it makes me wonder, why go so low? Why go so mean to his family that just wants to say goodbye? And I guess the whole point of this video is, if you bought it, then you would know what's going on. And the whole article roundup is, I have more of a sympathetic note for Hef's son. I don't really have any sympathy for Crystal. I mean, you got treated well. Even Hef's son says it's because of him. You have this lifestyle you still have now. It did help, and I mean, she got to release a book because of it. I mean, if she didn't have this association with Playboy and the girls next door, I don't think anyone would really be interested in her book as much. It seems to be there's a pattern with the tell-alls, like I said, and it seems when they get running down on their luck, they go to some book company and I guess approach them about their idea with the book. So this is my first take on this and my first video, so hopefully you guys liked it. I will be doing more Playboy mysteries soon. It's basically me finding mysterious topics to talk about that are Playboy related, called the Playboy Mysteries, and I'll be doing my first subject on Stephanie Adams, which is a Playboy playmate who fell to her death from a high-rise building with her son. And I'd like to think it is mysterious to some degree, just a personal perspective of mine, and we'll be diving into that conversation in my next video. And don't forget to give me a comment down below of what you think about the issue of Us Weekly. Again, I'll be doing the next topic at hand on Stephanie Adams and why it is a big deal and it's not really discussed as much. And there's not a lot of information out there about Stephanie Adams. So I'm going to be diving into that topic of conversation very soon. I wanted to thank you for watching and tune back in. I will probably have more rambles soon, so it will be Playboy related, and please subscribe if you want. If not, just come back whenever.